How can I make?
Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is this happening?
I do not understand. I do not. What if? Hear me out.
Why is this happening?
That'll do.
I'll do, pig. I'll do. I'll do.
Eep.
Babe.
Let me get situated.
Babe.
Okay. And action. We haven't recorded in so long. I don't know what to do. So we took a week off. We don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do.
How dare you take a vacation?
What's action mean? I get this.
Yeah, man.
7-Up Tropical. 0 sugars.
Drop a cow.
It's pretty good.
East it. Yeah.
It's pretty good. So we were talking about American evangelicalism and hypocrisy
Oh yeah, pretty much.
before just now. Briefly.
Briefly.
You said a thing, and then I thought of that and said that statement,
Yes, you did.
basically.
Now, hypocrisy. Yeah, we were talking about the alleged shooter in Minnesota who shot the lawmakers.
Jace.
Jace. From the information, what little information I do have, because as you said, being uninformed, I try to be uninformed to a certain extent. But from
I
what
have
little
no idea.
what little information I have seen, it seems to be both religious and politically motivated.
What a combo.
Right. Seems like that combination has left a pretty long trail of blood, going all the way back to some dude that was hanging on a cross.
Yeah.
Probably actually even earlier than that.
Yeah.
But it's pretty ironic to do it in his name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if ironic's the right word.
Hypocritical. You know what? Things happen to me when I listen to certain voices.
Mm-hmm. Like who? Mine?
No. Like, well, it's just funny because I had been listening for the last, like, ever since I got home until literally when I just walked in your door, I was listening to some responses from Randall Rouser
Yep. An old Randy.
and several of them in particular had to do. He was responding to Frank Turek,
Nice.
and it really is just crazy, like the how we're just willing to ignore this thing over here and say something else over here and just like pretend like those two things are don't contradict each other,
Right.
you know.
Oh yeah. Trust me, I know.
Like there was um well, so like there was a couple different examples, but one of the examples was a guy was because you know who Frank Turek is, right? You know
Show.
kind of
Faux show.
what his deal is. He goes to like colleges and people ask him questions, and he takes the little clips of them and puts them on YouTube, and you know people that like that sort of thing like it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the ones that don't. But he's like an apologist. But he had someone come up to him and they were asking him about is it moral for God to kill people or command that people be killed? And so basically Frank Turek's response was like, um, does God have the right to do what God wants to, like what God wants to do, I guess. Like, does God have the right to do that?
Right.
To which you kind of are sort of forced to say, well, I mean, you're not forced to. You could say no, but like, if you're someone who believes God exists, and you, depending on your view of God and God's authority and whatnot, like you could say, yeah, sure,
Although I
but
would say if God is good, then no.
exactly, yeah,
If God is truly love, as written in First John chapter 4,
yeah,
then no.
right. But then, like you, just like, and it's what it is. What it is. It's just it's apologetics. It's folks that are
We already know where I stand on that field.
well, it's like in that sort of. I mean, what it is like little miniature debates, is what it is. People are someone with an opposing view is getting up. It's their turn. They come up to the microphone. They ask their question. They have a little back and forth with them. It's like a little miniature debate.
Right.
So like, yeah, there's if your focus is on winning the argument, there's things you can say, but like you're ignoring the the legitimate question. Like there is the question is not without warrant.
Right.
Like because basically what he did, it turns out this guy was pro-choice, and so he turns it kind of back around on him and is like, well, it's okay for God to say who lives and dies. It's immoral for God to say who lives and dies, but it's not for you. So, he kind of, and that was kind of like the end of the clip or whatever. And it's like, I mean, that seems like a sort of like a gotcha as far as like an argument goes, but it's not addressing the actual question. The actual question is because someone like me, you can't use that argument with me because I'm pro-life.
Yeah.
You know, so like you can't use that. Like I could make that same argument that guy made, but Frank Turek can't make that response to me because I would be like, well, no, I'm not.
I would argue I'm actually more pro life than Frank Turek is, but
Yes, exactly, exactly. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about with like the hypocrisy, the like the double standard. Like it's you can't say that you're pro-life over here and then say things that are quite obviously not pro-life on the other hand.
right.
If you're either pro-life or you're not, So that really does frustrate me. And so just whenever you brought up the guy killing in the name of Jesus, these politicians and
Right, which I should say, and I did say this, but I want to reiterate that that's just based on the initial information that I had read from the sources that I
oh yeah,
read. So
and
I
what
don't know whether that's true or not, but
and
regardless of whether in this instance it's true, it has happened many
oh
times
yeah, for
before.
sure.
So
So like I have even less. I'm just going off of whatever you said, and you said you don't even know for sure that that's right. But
right.
you know, anyway, it was a just got my mind kind of rolling in that because that's what I've literally all these videos I've been watching
Right.
for the past hour have been little like responses to stuff like that. So
Which, ironically enough, for me, always comes back to just our view of Scripture and how to use it and what it actually is. And I think that so much of that's wrapped up in that, just because we don't know you. Like, if you have a certain view of it and how it works and how to use it, how to wield it,
right,
then you kind of unnecessarily force yourself into contradictory beliefs. Whereas, like, sometimes it's okay to kill, but I'm also pro life. You know what I mean? Like, if you believe that God literally commanded genocide in the Old Testament or literally sent a flood to murder all living beings on the face of the planet,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff is just avoiding the questions. A lot of that kind of stuff. Like there was another one where the person was asking about why is God's law, and he was talking about the stoning of children, disobedient children from
yeah,
Deuteronomy 21 or whatever. He brought that up. The questioner brought that up and was saying like how if like why would God's law, if God is morally perfect, why would God's law seem immoral to us now? And he went on this whole thing about God's God's law not being, he actually said it's not perfect, or like it wasn't meant to be a perfect law for all time. But that is not answering the real question.
Right.
The real question is, why would, and he was, he quoted all the scriptures about, like, how we're not, that's Old Testament, those old, Old Covenant, we're not under the Old Covenant, we're, Hebrews 8, or whatever says that where
Right.
the Old Covenant's obsolete. But yeah, sure. But I mean, it's still laws given by God, and God's morally perfect, and this is not morally perfect.
Right.
So what do you do with that? And that, so a lot of that stuff is just like avoiding those. It seems to me, anyway.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's the same sort of like I've had a lot of questions around that about just in scripture in general in the Bible, right? We seem to uphold it to such a like a high standard and it's so important and we talk so much about it. And then there's that part of me that's just like, I mean, if this is God's way of making himself known to people, think about all the like the pain and suffering that's been caused by the misuse of it and the misinterpretation of it. And it's like, I don't know, man. It's a struggle. Like, just being honest and open about it. It's a struggle for me to be like, I mean, if that was really God's way of communicating who he is to us, it feels like it could be a little more clear, like, and I get like, there's something about saying like, oh no, the struggle in it is where like the real transformation changes. And like, yeah, that's good and all, but it's also been used to justify slavery and murder and war and genocide. And you know what I mean? Like, there,
Yeah.
and I don't have an answer for that. I'm just being open and honest about like, yeah, like that. It's something I've thought about. It's a struggle that I have with it.
And really, it's that is applicable to just any sort of authority, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like anything that is holds power and authority can be corrupted, can be used for, with ill intent, can be misused.
Right.
So, like, the scriptures in that regard aren't really any different than anything else that has power and authority, you know, to me, I guess.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's supposed to be or has to be used that way, or should be.
Right.
Not
It's
not
just
to excuse the way that it has been, but
to me, it's just a real tension between like how God chooses to make himself known and like the how to the degree it's been misused and misunderstood. And in a lot of ways, I think that the way it has been misused isn't always in an intentionally malicious way. It's
right.
just because of it's hard and people don't understand. And like from that perspective, it is like, well, if it's, I mean, seems like there was a little bit we could have made this a little more clear to where so many people didn't have to die. I mean, but
Yeah. On the other hand, it's like I don't know what else he could have done. Like, if the New Testament claims about Jesus are true, we're talking about God Himself in flesh saying, "Hey, knock it off. This is what I've been trying to tell you guys from the beginning. This is the whole law. This is how you're supposed to live your life." Like, cool. And we killed him. So, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, yes, but also part of the reason why they killed him is because of the way they interpreted those previous scriptures. Like,
well, yeah.
I mean, but anyway,
Yeah. I just mean, I don't know. I mean, shy of a divine dictation,
right,
which would seem like a violation to me. I don't know that, and not only not only does divine dictation just not make sense to me by reading the actual text, but like, it also doesn't really make sense to me in terms of like, I don't think God possesses you. Like, that's what the demonic does. It possesses. Right.
right. I mean, and that's kind of the way that I would say, like, how I wrestle with that tension, and it causes other tensions. Let me just say that outright, but because I don't know how much I really believe that God acts in the world apart from partnering with human people
Right.
or partnering with creation, I would say. So I don't know that, to that point, divine dictation would be that escape route, I guess. But I don't think God. I'm not convinced that God works that way. The implications of that being though that like so you're like that kind of eliminates the idea of some sort of miraculous healings or anything like that. If God doesn't act in the world like that, if He always is partnering with creation.
Well, so I think that God is always partnering with creation, but I don't think that that means that God is limited to that and that alone. Um, but I don't know that. I don't know.
I think where my mind goes with it is to even to say partnering kind of does it a disservice, I think, because the implication is that there's a God and there's a creation. Those are two separate things. But I don't know that I believe that. So, anyway,
Yeah. Well, it just it. I'm just thinking about how. Well, for one, I'm thinking about how I hear that. I'm thinking as much as we've talked about it, I still the question comes to mind, what do you mean by it?
right.
Even though we've talked about it a ton. And then my thought was, how is that going to be heard by other people? Because I would say that I agree with that. I would say that God becomes what God creates. That there is nothing that God has created that He is not in, and
Well,
everything exists within.
that's exactly what that's really what I'm saying. That's what I mean to say by that. I don't think
Right.
that all of creation is the totality of God, right? I think God's exist beyond creation, I guess you could say, but I don't think that any part of creation exists outside of God. So even to say that God partners with creation is to assume that there is a distinct creation and a distinct God, whenever I think God's already in every aspect of creation. You know what I mean?
Yes. So I guess when I would what I would think that that would mean as far as like partnering would be like I do think that God's not forceful, not coercive. Like there is a you have your part in coming into alignment with the flow uh of what God's intention, God's will is. Now there is something for you to do, but so that would be I guess the partnering. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
I
This
mean,
conversation did not go anywhere where I anticipated.
no. I had no idea where it was going to go.
I didn't either, but I didn't think it was going to go here.
Yeah.
This is something I've been thinking about recently, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
I haven't really been thinking about it either. It just kind of came up. But
But it's always it does kind of hit at something that's always on my mind, right? Especially we've talked about it on the show before, but especially because of the church that we attend and the things that our church has been involved with some of the like claims of healing and the immersion services and all that. And my question of wrestling with the idea of God what seems to be selectively miraculously healing people while allowing other people to suffer and die, and just that tension of like how I don't know that I believe it. I don't know that I believe in that kind of miraculous healing anymore. And so that's always sort of on the back of my mind of like even when I'm not actively thinking about it, it's still something I guess I'm always conscious of, even
yeah.
even if it's subconsciously.
Yeah. It's one of those things that is ugh, like you just never, I don't know that we're ever going to find a satisfactory, at least for me, because like on the one hand, it's very appealing to just say that this doesn't happen at all so that you can say, well, it's not happening for this one. Like, exactly just what you laid out
Yeah,
there. Like that's a very appealing thing because it kind of gets you off the hook, I guess, of trying to understand why some people are healed and some people aren't.
right.
Um, but at the other on the other hand, we have to say that God doesn't heal in that way.
I would just say in that way, though, I think God is healing every time a doctor heals somebody. It's just the same way like we laid out when we talked about when we got back from Honduras, and you look around. It's easy to look around at like people that are suffering and be like, where in the hell is God in this? There are people suffering. Why isn't He doing something about it? And then you look around and you're like, oh, He is. He's here. He's in Sean playing with this kid. He's with Keith throwing a football to some kid that had never had a man throw a football with him before. Like, no, God is at work in creation. It's just you don't need some sort of supernatural, unseen, like mysterious, unexplainable thing for that to happen. Like God is always at work in healing, but it's you know what I'm trying to say? Like that
Yeah.
tension that I'm trying to say. Like you don't. I guess from my perspective, I don't. I don't need to believe in some sort of miraculous, unexplainable miracle to see God healing in creation. I see Him healing in every person that's healed, in the doctors that are doing, in the scientists that are doing the research and cancer research, in the people that are donating money to St. Jude's to fund that research. Like that is God at work in His healing process. You know what I mean?
But wouldn't that be true regardless
Of
of whether there are miraculous healings or not?
yes, but it would be true regardless, but without the baggage of having to wrestle with the like, well, but if God does selectively choose who to heal and who not to, He's allowing a heck of a lot more people to suffer than He's actually miraculously healing. You know what I mean? Like if you're going, I don't know that I can live with and believe in a God who every once in a while miraculously heals somebody, particularly when it's something that's not a life's like it's not that big of a deal in scope of some of the suffering that people are going through, but then allows those people to suffer those extreme amounts. I don't know that I can. And we've talked about that before. That what it comes down to a lot is what can you and can't you live with, and like I don't know that the benefits of that view outweigh the negatives to me.
Right.
And it's easy for me to say because I'm healthy, my son is healthy, my wife is healthy. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would probably be different if I needed a miracle.
Right. Yeah. I guess I was just thinking that, like, either way, there are people that are healed and some that aren't. And God's either at work in it or He's not. Because even, I mean, I guess you could put all of it on us. If you're like, if we're saying that, like, this doctor heals this person and that's God at work in that person healing. Well, if the doctor doesn't heal that person, then that's also God at work not healing that person.
Right. And
You
that's
know?
really what the tension that I was trying to get at with using the language of partnering with. Like, I don't know that for so long I've made a delineation between, I guess you would call it the sacred and the secular, right? Like, these are two separate things. There's God at work and then there's people at work. And I don't know that I can any longer make that delineation. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah, I don't think that there's a like God's doing something over here. Well, I don't know. I mean, I do think that God is partnering with us in the things that happen, but I don't think that God is limited to that.
right. And I understand that view. Like I said, just for me personally, it creates more problems than I think it helps me with currently. And maybe that'll change. But
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess that makes sense if you're viewing it from an open and relational. Although I don't actually know for sure. Maybe I just don't understand enough about it. Because the way that Tom Ward, the way I've heard him speak about God, he essentially does believe that God is a being
yes, I think so.
rather than. So is that what you think?
No, I don't think I do. I move further and further away from that. It's actually funny that you brought that up because that was something that I thought would come up today just because it's something that I've been thinking about recently. And I've realized that so much of the language that we use, even people who have sort of deconstructed and reconstructed, or people who are more on the progressive side of Christianity, still sort of really, and to an extent, it's the best we can do is to speak of God with these like sort of humanistic anthropomorphic language. But like the more I read and study and pray and think, like the further and further away from that view of like a almost like an extraterrestrial being. You know what I mean? Like I know that that's not a one for one example, but that's almost how it is presented, right? Like God is this being who's not a human, but is like this extraterrestrial being, and like that's not like I view God more now as sort of like just the ground of existence. Like I don't know, that's even that language doesn't do it duty, but
Right, yeah.
it's the best I could do. I'm an idiot, so
Right. The ground of being, the reality itself.
right, yeah,
Yeah. And yet there is but the thing is, you cannot, I guess you can, but I don't think we should allow that understanding to cause us to depersonalize God. I don't even know if it's a word, but
I
like,
think it's a word.
um, because God is personal, right? Like God, if if I'm convinced of anything, it's that God is relational. It's that God loves. And so a lot of it comes back down to like we're talking about things that we just can't understand really. Like,
Can't understand, and for sure don't have the language for.
right. Because like you said, we almost can't not speak anthropomorphically, but we have no other, like we have no other way to really talk about the concepts of love and knowledge and God doing this and doing that. Well, I mean, we almost have to speak anthropomorphically about it to even.
Right. I mean, that's one of the things that really, like, I wrestled with a lot when some of the recent conversations that me and you had with God's relation to time, and yet still being relational to people. Like, I can't comprehend how God can be present in your, like, every second of your life simultaneously without like a progression of time and still be relational. You know what I mean? Because it's like there's no, to me, a relation requires like that progressive sequence of time. Like if you know every second of someone's, like how are you relational with that person? You know what I mean? Like it's just, and I know that there's ways around it. It's just what I'm trying to say is the finitude of my mind trying to grasp that has been a struggle.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm not saying that I can fully grasp it either.
I mean, I try to think about it from my perspective of like, would I be relational? Like, what kind of relationship would I have with my wife if like I knew every second of her existence from birth to death already simultaneously, and I didn't experience it? Like, our relationship wasn't a sequence that I experienced, but there was just, you know what I mean? Like trying to imagine that is almost like nonsensical to me. Like I can't wrap my mind around that.
Mm, yeah. So I guess I wouldn't say that like it's not that God is absent from the sequence. He's present in every moment of the sequence.
Right, but I mean, if he's simultaneously present in every second of it, then he's not, he may be present in the sequence of it, but he's not experiencing it as a sequence. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's where my mind, like, again, I'm not saying that it's an incorrect even view. I'm just saying that's why my mind has a problem with it. That's why my mind can't hardly grasp what it is that we're even talking about. Because even just trying to, like, I don't know how, yeah, it's just a finitude in my mind. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't have any way, I don't have the proper language to even express it.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, it just comes down to our finitude just gets in the way all the time of everything.
Basically, yeah.
We just can't understand these things. I keep using the language of grasp, and I'm thinking I'm going to stop using that. I don't like saying grasp
It's kind of a whack word, actually.
because it makes it seem like, well, for one, that's the original sin, right? And grasping for something that, you know, grasping for something that you already have actually is was the original sin.
Did you listen to the most recent? Sorry,
Oh, you're good.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're
The
good.
the
I
most
was
that just made me think about Peter Hyatt on the most recent episode of Rethinking God with Tacos.
I did listen to it. I don't remember much about it, but I did listen to it.
I was just thinking about the part where he was talking about there being one tree.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It was both the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but it's just
yeah,
one tree, and it's about the intent used or whatever for the. I don't remember now
yeah,
exactly how he put it because it's been a while since I listened to it. I listened to it like the first day it came out, but
yeah. I've heard that from multiple people. I think he's probably getting that from one of the church fathers because I've heard it from several people before. But it's um, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Actually,
yeah,
I mean the way I mean, if you even just read the text, it says that they're both at the center,
yeah, right,
right? Like, how can there be two at the center? There's only so there's it's one tree.
right. Which is just goes
But
back to me. There's so many parallels with that. Like we've talked about the wrath of God being God's love, but to some it comes across as love, to others wrath, or like potentially that's what is being described as hell is just God's love, but to some people it's bliss, and to others it's a torment. You know what I mean? Like it's just that sort of
yeah,
it's that same sort of idea, that same sort of parallel of like it's not a difference in God is God, God is love. He's never changing. It's the same, but it's our reception of it that's different. You know what I mean? Like in our
yeah,
perception and reception. I just think it's a pretty cool thought, pretty cool idea. That was a good episode.
yeah. And then that tree is also the cross.
The cross,
So the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil are
law
also
versus grace.
the cross at the center.
I think that could come across as controversial to some people. The cross is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that caused the fall in the first place.
Mm. Well, it was taking from the tree.
Right. I mean, I agree with you, and I know what you're saying. I'm just saying that some
Yeah,
people might hear that and be like, "Wait a minute."
yeah. I think it tracks though. I mean,
I think so.
at the very least, I think you would could say that's the tree of life, right? Like
I
that one
think everybody thinks
works.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. But if they are one and the same tree, then I think you would have to say that
Right.
the cross isn't the tree of life and not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You know,
Right.
because the tree itself isn't a bad thing.
Which I think that really does track with the whole idea of like the parallel that you see throughout the New Testament of law versus grace. Right. I think tree of life, grace, tree knowledge of good and evil is law. It's my imposition of what I think is right and wrong. I don't know. Anyway, that's also not something that I anticipated I'm talking about today.
Right. Well, if it is the knowledge of good and evil, well, then why wouldn't that be the cross? The cross is the revelation of good and evil, I think, in one sense. Like it is the greatest good ever accomplished, right? Was the cross, and it was simultaneously the most evil act that was ever accomplished.
Right.
But what the enemy means for evil, God means for good, right?
I'm just trying to think through everything of like the story of the tree, the fall of man. I'm trying to think through like and how it tracks through because like in a way, you do get that idea of like if you with the idea being that like the serpent, the snake, whatever, I think it says serpent, says to Eve that if you eat of this tree, you will be like God, right? So like to strive to make yourself, even to strive to to live up to the cross, even like to I'm going to make myself as holy as possible through these actions that I can take. Like, yeah, I don't know. Makes sense to me.
But the revelation of the good is self-sacrifice. It's the loving your neighbor all the way to your own death, loving your enemy all the way to your own death. Like the knowledge of good and evil, if it is the cross, then that has to be the revelation of goodness, of what true goodness is and what it. Yeah.
Man, that made me think. I was listening to. I've really been really liking this. It's the podcast has been going on for a long time, but I've only just recently found it. But it's rethinking faith with Josh Patterson.
Mm.
I've really been liking the episodes that he's been putting out lately. But he did one recently with a guy named Jeremy Jernigan, I believe was his name. And I don't know this guy, but apparently the guy he does his own podcast called Cabernet and Prayer or something like that. But he sits down with different people and they drink a glass of wine or multiple glasses of wine and talk theology. And he was a I think he said he was a pastor of a couple different churches for a total of like 20 years or so, like, and then deconstructed, and he started doing that show, which is more of like a deconstruction show. And then he was really influenced by Greg Boyd a lot in some of his, like, throughout his process. And um but anyway, he's still a Christian, but he's not active in the church world. He, other than his own podcast, he does like his own podcast where he does one. It comes out once a week, and it's about like just like a Bible study. He said it's a 10-minute episode. It comes out every Sunday morning, and it's for people who don't feel comfortable in church but still want church. Like, he's giving them sort of like a Bible exposition, like.
Yeah.
And then every other week, his other show comes out where they just sort of get into the nitty gritty of theology and talk about people's stories and stuff. But
Mm.
anyway, so Josh asked him, one of the questions he asked him was, why are you still a Christian? And what the guy said, I mean, he said a lot, so go and listen to the episode. But one of the things he said that really stood out to me, because I hadn't heard it said this way, but I loved it so much, and it tracks with what you were just saying there, is first he said, because I can't quit Jesus. And he said that what he sees in Jesus is the revelation that God would rather suffer the violence that mankind inflicts upon him. He would rather hang on a cross than use violence to achieve his will.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's good stuff, I mean, that resonates with me, because through all the struggles that I've had with my theology and my deconstruction and reconstruction and deconstruction and reconstruction and deconstruction and reconstruction, and some of the constant questions, and even like some of the negativeness I get from like the mixing of church and politics and all of that stuff that like leaves that bad taste in my mouth. At the end of the day, there's still something about Jesus that I can't let go of. And that's it. He hit the nail on the head with it. Like, that's what it is. There's just something about that like, I know there's truth in that.
Right.
If I'm wrong about everything else, if I'm wrong about Trinitarianism and God miraculously healing people and all this other stuff, if I'm wrong about everything, that's one thing that I feel like I know, or I don't know anything at all, is that's what we see in Jesus. Is that's what it's all about. That's what the story, as I quoted it to you the other day, the story of Jesus is about. Is that God is love, and that there is no separation between God and man. And he's willing, as the song says, as we talked about a million times, my favorite church song, there's no shadow he won't light up. Like the most violent, horrific shadow that can be imagined. That's what I see in Jesus. You know what I mean? And like, that's what I can't quit. That's why I still call myself a Christian.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And what the thought that came to my head whenever you were um saying what this fella had said was that it uh, paradoxically that is actually how God accomplishes his will.
Right.
It's not as if uh God doesn't need to force himself. He doesn't need violence or coercion to accomplish his will.
Right.
In fact, it's accomplished in the exact opposite of
Well, see,
that.
that's what I was going to say, is because we've kind of mocked before, like the whole Donald Trump Jr. thing. We've tried to turn in for the other cheek. No, the hell we have.
Yeah.
We've tried enforcing our will through violence from the very beginning of time to today.
Yeah.
And what has that got us? More violence begets more violence, right? Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only love can do that. We've tried
Yeah.
eye for an eye, over and over again. We've tried violence. We've tried atomic weapons. We've tried semi automatic rifles. We've tried drones. We've tried every sort of violence to the point that we killed God.
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
like we've tried every sort of violence that there is, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. The only thing that works is we see it in God, the God man hanging on a tree, the tree of life, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This this way of self-sacrifice, this way of enemy love, of radical enemy love, even to the point of your own death. That is how you save the world. It's how you change the world. That's the only thing that works. But it doesn't work if you're trying to save your own life.
Right.
If your goal is to save your own life, then no, it doesn't work.
Right. I mean, that's just like what we've said before, right? If that's your view of working, then Jesus failed.
Yeah. He literally said if you try to save your life, you'll lose it. If you lose your life for my sake, you'll find it. So, you have not yet resisted to the point of death. So it says in Hebrews.
Right.
So, go on somewhere.
And
Donald J.
that guy, that Jernigan guy, he had kind of, in telling his story, the reason why I brought up Greg Boyd in as part of his story is because he had said that he was actually like a concealed carry all the time, hardcore, like had who knows how many handguns and rifles in his possession, and like he had all this like complex, basically what I've described before is turning yourself in knots to justify whatever it is you want to justify, and basically said like that and he said that one time Greg, had asked him about, like, how do you love your enemies, and like he had realized, in part of that, he was trying to justify himself
Mm.
by using violent force against his enemies, and trying to. And then he said that Greg just asked him one simple question. He's like, "Do you think that you're making this too complicated?" And in that moment, he said he realized of like, yeah, I think I am actually. Like I'm trying. I mean, he realized that he was doing what I said, turning himself in knots just to justify whatever he wanted to justify. When the truth is literally right there. Jesus said to love your enemies and to turn the other cheek. Like that's what it says,
Yeah.
And it's like so that he's become like a sort of a radical nonviolent, in that tradition. So
I mean, that's sounds exactly like my own experience. Like, I mean, at the time, I wasn't really twisting myself in knots. I just didn't care, really.
well, yeah,
That time, at that time, I didn't really care what the Bible or what Jesus said or whatever. I didn't really believe any of it at the moment.
right,
But yeah, I had a similar revelation where I kind of was just struck by the the simplicity of it. Like Jesus either said what he said and lived what he lived, or he didn't. And what he said was love your enemies, man.
right,
And what he did was live that out to his own death and called us to pick up our crosses and follow him in that. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can try and twist yourself in knots and explain that away, but like you were just saying, like with him, like that, it's way simpler than that, and yet way harder.
yeah. It's simple in a way,
Yeah,
but also way more complicated in a way, and way more difficult.
yeah. But that was a major turning point for me. Like I still didn't even know what if I believed anything at that point, but I was struck by that fact, and I knew at that point that if I ever did believe again, it was going to cause major problems for me with my, because I was carrying weapons on me all the time back then, so
Right.
and trained to use them and stuff. So
Yeah, and the reality is, I don't know that I'm still saved enough to live it out.
right,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's the complication of it. That's where it's more difficult. It's like in theory I understand, but in practice, I don't know that I'm there yet.
Yeah.
I like to think I am, but
It's certainly, the thought of it, at least, is certainly more beautiful, I think, that self-sacrificing love of enemy is a way more beautiful story than just another conquering king who comes in and kills everybody that opposes him,
right.
you know? Uh, but yeah, as far as whether I can put that into practice in my own life or not, I don't know. I mean, I would like to think I could. I mean, it seems that the martyrs did, right?
Right.
I mean, there were people that literally followed that same path. They felt that this way was worth dying for. They did it. They lived it out,
Yeah.
even till their last breath. Like I've heard a lot of stories of like people like Christians in the Colosseum being ripped apart by lions, and as they're being ripped apart, they're saying like Jesus loves you or whatever. Like that's living that crap out. You know, that's real. We don't experience that kind of uh persecution.
Well, I guess that depends on who you ask. So you would think based on some of the things you read that happen to people on Facebook that yeah that
I mean, there may be people like missionaries in other parts of the world that occasionally are killed and stuff like that.
right.
But like as far as like here in America,
But don't you know that there's a war on Christmas and a war on Christians? There's a culture war.
mm, is the war on Christmas still a thing? I remember that being a thing
I
whenever we
don't
were
know.
like teenagers or something.
It's
The
a
whole
long
Xmas thing.
it's a long war.
I
It's the
guess.
100 Years War.
Mm.
The Xmas thing actually cracked me up when like when I actually researched it and figured out where that come from and what it means. That destroyed me. That killed me in a hilarious way.
Oh yeah. Is it meant to just be more inclusive, like from a
No,
religious aspect of it?
it's based upon the and I don't remember. It's been so long since I looked this up. So if the details of it are a little bit off, don't crucify me. But it's just comes from the like the Greek word that's used for Christian. Like it's just an abbreviation.
Oh.
It's just that it means Christian. It comes from Christians. The Christians are the ones who started saying Xmas as an abbreviation.
Oh. Well, there you go.
They're not Xing out Christ.
See, that's how I always heard it.
Right,
That
of
was the
course.
narrative I heard anyway.
Well, because we were fed this narrative of like, well, Christians are always going to be persecuted. It says so in Revelation, and we know that Revelation's going to happen. So there's going to be this tribulation, and we're all going to be persecuted. And before you know it, we're not going to be able to read the Bible, and people are going to come and cut your head off if you own a Bible, and blah 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 blah. And meanwhile, we're proclaiming this. Well, we live in a country where the Christians hold all the power.
Yeah. I mean, that could happen at some point in the future, I guess, but that's not the case right now.
Right.
And if the Christian nationalists have their way, it won't ever be that, you know? So it is interesting. I wonder how someone who is a Christian nationalist could also be a premillennial rapturist, like that, have that rapturist theology with, and with specifically with like a premillennial. I wonder how that would work with someone that is also a Christian nationalist.
I'm gonna just assume that if they're a Christian nationalist, they don't know what any of those other words mean.
Maybe. So like someone like Doug Wilson is a pretty well known. Like I mean, uh, he is a Christian nationalist. I don't know if he would label himself that, but he fits all the markers. You know,
Checks a lot of boxes.
yeah. But he's also a post mill person, which makes sense. Like the post millennial view actually is a very hopeful view, but it also lends itself pretty well to Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Because the whole point is that Christ isn't going to come back until after the millennial reign.
Right.
post mill. So like the 1,000 years like of peace and essentially what the so like if you're a Christian nationalist and you are also someone who's a post millennial, then you would say like, oh yeah, well we need to get Christians in all of these areas of influence, like the Seven Mountain Mandate and all that jazz. Like we
Right.
need Christians in all of these areas so that we can bring about this peace, so that we can
So the
so,
clock can start.
exactly so that we can get Jesus to come back and everything will be good at that point.
Yeah, Christian nationalists being in charge actually sounds like hell to me. So I'm pretty sure that lends it. So maybe I'm a pre-mill.
Yeah. So anyway, but like if you're someone, so it makes sense for a post millennial eschatology person, but I don't know that it makes sense for uh, someone who's like what I grew up with, which is like a premillennial,
Right.
rapture
You're gonna get
theology.
out of here before hits the fan.
Exactly. Things are. That's how you know that Jesus is coming. Is 'cause things are really bad.
Right.
So like, if why would you? If you're a Christian nationalist and you also have that rapture theology, the pre-mill rapture theology, I don't know why you would even think it would be a good thing. You almost would rather like why even vote for people that you think are, you know
Right.
what I mean? Like if you're trying to get things as bad as I can possibly get so that Jesus comes back.
I'm gonna send this world into the crapper just so just so Jesus will come back.
You would think they would be looking for the most non-Christ-like candidate for president and vote for them every time.
Surprise, surprise! It seems like that's what they did.
Unintentionally. But yeah, that is funny.
That's hilarious,
So yeah.
and also not because of the amount of pain and suffering that it's causing people. But
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder maybe if anyone is listening that isn't, one of the 10 people that listen regularly and you happen to be a Christian nationalist and someone who also believes in a premillennial rapture, explain.
and after you come on and explain, we can have a fist fight.
I guess.
I'm kidding. I'm a pacifist. Come on.
What happened to all that enemy love stuff? I guess you could do it from because you don't have to fight someone in anger.
I mean, that was always the way I justified my love for mixed martial arts. It's like they're not fighting each other because they hate each other. It's a sport. They're competitors. It's no different than American football. We line up across from each other and we hit each other, and it's not out of spite. It's because we're athletes. And to be honest, I still like MMA. I don't watch it very
Right.
regularly because I don't have time and it's just too much to keep up with. But
Yeah, I mean, I still like to watch it. And I guess there is a way to do it. Uh, I do feel like though, hmm, I don't know, maybe someone other than me could could not do it that way. I don't know, like the where it's solely about competition and it's not about like, I mean, there a lot of the fighters actually do dislike each other.
right, right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I just know, like, I have a little bit of experience with it because I did step in the ring with somebody, and like, neither me or the guy that I went in there against, like, had any sort of bad. I didn't even know the guy, like, and afterwards, he seemed like a real nice guy. We're good, got along just fine. It was not a, it was literally just a competition for the both of us.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That took a random turn. Whoever would have thought we were going to talk about MMA?
I know. Well, like back when I trained and stuff, like I had a hard time uh like I had to channel some anger
Yeah.
to even be able to do it. To even be able to be competitive.
I think in a way I can
Anyway.
like I almost think that like that's one of the benefits I think of like jujitsu is like you can prevent someone from harming other people and including yourself, without causing death to that other. I mean, you can kill somebody with your bare hands, but it doesn't have. Like if you protect yourself with a handgun against somebody that's trying to assault you or someone else, there's a good chance that you're taking their life. You catch them in a rear naked choke and choke them till they pass out. Minimal damage is done. You know what I mean? Lives are
Yeah.
saved.
If you try to grapple with someone who has a gun, you can do it.
Yeah,
It can be done. Statistically, you're probably more likely to just get shot and die.
probably. You're right.
But yeah, it
I
can
agree.
be done. There's right and wrong ways to do it.
But I do think that that's kind of the argument. That is sort of I think, a possibly a legitimate argument for being well trained in a martial art such as jujitsu, which is specifically jujitsu is not strike based. I mean, it's so. I think that if you're a very dangerous jujitsu person, acknowledging that most people who commit these violent crimes with handguns are morons that don't know how to use them,
Yeah,
maybe you could save a life using it. Who knows?
yeah. There's just so many factors. It would depend on how close you were, how confident and skilled you are versus them. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that
I mean, I'm
factor
not going to
into it.
try it, but Damien Maya maybe.
Maybe it would depend. Yeah, it would. There's so many. Like I said, there's just so many things to consider. Your distance and all of that. Like who's around you. Like, are you in a crowded place? Are you by yourself? So there's a lot of things that go into it.
Would Jesus condone you shooting someone in the kneecaps?
I don't know. Probably. I want to say no. I don't know if Jesus would condone any use of a gun. But again, I still own guns. And would I never use one? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that Jesus would want me to. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't.
Amen. I concur.
Yeah. I mean, I've still got all of my guns that I had, you know, which, just in case the government's listening, only have
They're all legally obtained.
only have one.
I don't have any, so you have to come for me.
I don't have very many actually, in comparison to some folks. I got enough
Yeah, we got to
for what?
turn them into plowshares.
Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing with them, right? There's a time coming, so says the scriptures.
Yeah, I mean, that's my hope that we can cultivate a world where that's possible.
Well, there's no more need for war and teaching war.
Yeah.
Turn your swords into plowshares and all that jazz.
I'm not even sure what a plowshare is. I'm going to be honest.
That's a gardening
I'm
tool.
assuming it's some sort of gardening tool, yeah. But
Yeah. In other words, cultivating life rather
right.
than death. Yeah. Man, we need that, don't we? Uh, Question:
Yep.
what was Trump's military parade about? I don't even. I heard that there was a thing.
It was his birthday, I think.
Feel like it wasn't. It was. That's all it was. It was just for his birthday.
I have no idea. I don't follow that moron.
I don't know. There was some sort of. I don't know if there was like some sort of like celebration of the military or something going on,
I'm pretty sure it was his birthday, or maybe it was the army's birthday,
or both.
or both. It's something had to do with the birthday. I'm sure of that. But other than that, I have not been paying a bit of attention. Don't care. That's what my first thought was when I asked you this morning about what we were going to talk about, and then you said the whole no kings thing, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess we can talk about it, but I don't even know what it's about. Like, I haven't been following it.
Yeah, I don't really know either. Other than I know that people were protesting. I do know it was Trump's birthday, but I thought that there was something to do with the military also. So
I know I've said this in previous episodes, but I have to kind of take a step back and just, I can get eat up with it, man. get eat up with it, like with anger and despair and helplessness. And it's a real big the way that that Christianity is tied into the political system currently in the United States of America. It almost makes me disgusted to call myself a Christian, really, if I'm just being frank about it. And that's not probably not healthy for my faith. So
Right. Uh, do you ever? Probably not, because you of what you literally just said. But do you ever listen to Charlie Kirk on anything? Ever see his like clips?
I mean, on accident, occasionally I've seen a couple of clips here and there on accident, but
Yeah.
and I've never gone out just looking for them.
So, did you see the T&E uh, episode where they talked about they responded to clips from it was him and that Kevin, I think it's Kevin Carnahan is his name. He's been on the show several times.
I have not. I haven't seen that.
They were they showed some clips of Charlie Kirk doing a debate at Cambridge and made, did some responses to that. I didn't know if you ever listened to anything Charlie Kirk says or not. Oh,
I would rather
that was
listen to
interesting.
I would rather listen to whales fart into a microphone.
Well, some of the stuff he says you may as well,
Exactly.
but yeah.
My time is I only have a finite time on this earth, and I'm not going to waste a second of it. Listen to a syllable that comes out of that man's mouth intentionally.
Yeah. Well, see, I think that on the one hand, I think because he's such a popular figure, I kind of think it's important to know what he's saying, to know what's being put out there, even though I don't agree with with most of what he says. Some of it, I think it's very interesting. It's kind of the same sort of deal as like with Frank Turek and stuff. It's like it's people. It's a lot of these people are just people who know how to talk and speak confidently,
Yeah,
and people believe it because they say it with authority and confidence.
I've literally said this in the professional setting a million times, but like literally nobody knows what they're doing. If you just act like you know what you're talking about, people just believe you.
Yeah,
Just sound like you know what you're talking about. People are like, "Oh, that guy knows what he knows."
yeah,
Sure, I'm in.
yeah. But then, like, if you actually look into some of the stuff, you're like, oh, it's full of crap. But yeah. Anyway, I do think it's important to listen to folks like that, though. Probably also.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I made certain assumptions about the no kings thing just simply based upon like things that I have seen, what little bit I have seen, but I don't know. I don't know enough to speak on it authoritatively. I didn't. I was vacationing with my family, so
yeah,
I couldn't be bothered with political stuff. I was
yeah.
sampling moonshine.
Oh boy. Yeah. What day was it? Was it Saturday?
Mm,
I don't remember.
If it was Saturday, I was super busy that day. So
Yeah. I know that they ended up doing. There was a protest in Owensboro actually, and the majority of all these protests were peaceful. But
right,
anyway, uh, I think that from what I do know about it, I think I agree with the sentiment though. No king, but Jesus. You know, Christ is king. Jesus is Lord. That by implication means that Trump is not, just like Caesar is not.
right. I almost think that I've been kind of thinking through this a little bit. With it's sort of it would take forever to unpack where all of this is based out of, but it goes back to some of our previous conversations about like the Gospels and how they're written and how they portray Jesus. And I come to this sort of thought that I think a lot of the things that are said in particularly I'm focusing in a little bit on Matthew's gospel, but I think it's found in all of them really, or at least all the synoptics, is that Jesus is the way the narrative of the gospel story is written is almost presenting Jesus as an anti-Caesar,
Mm. Yep.
anti-king.
Yeah.
sort of in the way like an anti-hero is a hero, but against the grain, like it's
Right.
especially, like just looking into like particularly some of the exact things we've talked about before, like the virgin birth or like but you can believe that all those things are literal historical if you want to. Like I'm not poo-pooing on that today. I'm not doing that. But
Today.
today. but even if it's not, even if it's just a part of the story is to present Jesus, because that's what they used to say about the Caesars, right? Like they were deified.
Yeah.
They were referred to as the son of God, and like there were others that were presented as like born of a virgin and rose from the dead and ascended into heaven. Like all the same language that's used in the Gospels was said about some of the Caesars of Rome, right? And so from that perspective, it's like even if they are literally true, just the way it's written is written in a style that is like presenting Jesus as the anti-Caesar. He's the true king, not these poser kings like the Caesars are. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and the Revelation is written, if you, depending on how you read it,
right,
of course, is written, and it's pretty, has that same sort of theme, because Jesus is clearly the king in Revelation, the King of Kings, the the one with the power and authority, and yet he's only ever pictured as a lamb slain,
right.
a slaughtered lamb.
But that to me, it makes it even the more maddening to see how like modern American Christianity has wed itself into the political system and become so enthralled with presidents and senators and Caesars of our day, right? It's because like the literal God that you proclaim to serve is the living critique of that.
Right.
And that's exactly what you're doing. Like it's
Yeah.
it really is. We've said this before of like the "am I taking crazy pills" scenario, because it's like how does nobody see this? Like it's you're worshiping a God who is the literal embodiment of the critique of the system that you were. I was going to get a little vulgar there. Let's just say knee deep in.
Right.
I'll keep it PG for the kids, but
Yeah.
you're knee deep in it.
Yeah. Loins deep.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable in a certain way.
Yeah, it really is. It really is crazy. It really will make you feel like you're taking crazy pills because it's just that. It almost it really does kind of like I don't ever really know what to say about like spiritual warfare, about like other than like I believe it's a thing. I don't really know what else to say about it other than that.
Right.
But like stuff like that makes me think like there must really be something else involved here, right? Surely, you know. But
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know really. I don't know what to say about it. I mean, the one thing I do know is it makes my understanding, at least the way that I apply the book of Revelation and some of those scriptures, it makes it a little more real to me, because I had always traditionally been told like all this stuff is about stuff that's already happened and all this stuff over here is stuff that will happen. But now I see that it's stuff that has happened and will happen simultaneously, because it's a cycle. It's forever applicable to every society that's ever lived, and it's still to this day. Like the
yeah,
Antichrist still exists today, and he has previously existed, and it's existed and was gonna exist again in the future. Like it's just a cycle that continues to until we can break out of the cycle,
yeah,
which is you only break out of a cycle, right? Wasn't it? Always attributed to Einstein that the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. Like until we break out of the cycle of domination and control and our flawed and fallen conception of power, then we're never going to get out of that cycle. It's just a perpetual, continual cycle. As long as we continue to see the lion where there's actually the slain lamb, we're going to continue in this perpetual cycle of violence and antichrist.
yeah. It does make you wonder. What just came to my mind was like it makes you wonder, like there's that whole idea of the pendulum swinging too far one way or the other,
Mm-hmm.
and it does make me wonder because my thought was like maybe we just shouldn't even talk about Jesus as a lion at all until we can until we get the lamb part down.
Yeah.
Because like that is what a lot of people say. Well, he's also the lion.
Right.
But I will okay, but yeah, insofar as he fulfills this prophecy, but of the lion of the tribe of Judah, but like what we actually see him doing all throughout the scriptures is laying down his life
Right.
for his enemies.
The paradigm is the issue is that our conception of a lion is flawed. He is a lion, but as a lamb,
Right.
which I know is a contradiction,
Yeah.
but that's because our understanding of what it means to be a lion, right? An alpha male.
Right.
Like that's what's flawed. It's not you're not the alpha male isn't the one that dominates and controls and abuses and others, right? Like that's not what we see in Jesus. What he exposes is that our understanding of what it means to be the lion is wrong.
Right.
It's not that he's not a lion, it's that we don't even know what it means to be a lion. We would know if we would look to him, but we keep trying to impose our flawed understanding of what a lion is on him,
Yeah.
and that doesn't work.
Right. And until that's fixed, we're gonna continue to say ridiculous things and pretend that Jesus is on our side because he's also the lion.
Right. I mean, what you're saying there is exactly what I've tried to get across before about like my tension of whether I even wanted to call myself a Christian or not. It's like it's trying to think through the like, is this even helpful to use this language anymore? Even though, I follow Jesus and I'm not ashamed of Christ, because people always say, well, if you're ashamed of Christ, he's going to be ashamed of you on judgment. I'm not at all am I ashamed of Christ. But like I'm trying to think through like and again, I said it right after the election. With for me particularly, it's tied to Christian nationalism and the rise of the far right. With Trump, but like 80 some odd% of evangelicals supported him, and like it have put us in this situation and scenario. So I see that as someone who thinks that's the antichrist position, and think, is it even helpful for me to uphold this institution anymore? You know what I mean, or to be associated in any way? Like that's that tension of like what you were saying about using the language even of lion at all. Like,
Yeah.
is it even helpful to use the language of I'm a Christian and this Christianese language and the language of participating in church and all these things? Is that even beneficial at this point? That's the tension that I wrestle with in that.
Right.
It has nothing to do with being ashamed of Christ, like not in the least. I don't, but in a lot of ways, I don't think that what we call Christianity today worships Christ. I think it's ashamed of the actual Christ.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking. I think that those within the Christian nationalist group, those who would take that sort of view of the lion and just trying to impose that view of the lion onto Jesus, the Mark Driscoll like MMA fighter Jesus, jacked and bloodied and out for blood or whatever, like that they're the ones who are ashamed of Jesus
Yeah,
because in their minds it's shameful. It's well, Jesus isn't a beta or whatever, like
right,
they think that it's soft. Why don't you tell that to him as he's being beaten
right.
and nailed to a tree? Like, tell him that was too easy or soft or, you know,
I mean, that is really the an ultimate paradigm shift, man. Of like this whole idea of like the beta alpha thing of like there's no more alpha thing to do than to give your life to others
yeah,
out of love and service and care to others. You give your entire life away. That's the most alpha thing there is.
right,
That's not has nothing to do with fist fighting
right,
or murdering people and doing like violence acts. It has nothing to do with that. It's
right,
being man enough to give your life away for others.
yeah,
That's the ultimate sign of alpha male,
right,
in my opinion, at least.
yeah. I think so. I think that's the opinion of Jesus, the authors of the Gospels, at least.
Seems that way. That's my interpretation of it.
Yeah. Oh, well, gum. What were we even gonna talk about?
I don't really know. We had a pretty long text conversation today about just the nature of reality. Light stuff.
Right. I remember there was more that we wanted to say though, because we kind of stopped talking about it through text so we could talk about it tonight. But I don't even remember where we were at with it. So,
I don't either.
and we've been going for I don't
Yeah.
know an hour and looks like an hour and 15
I
maybe.
think the one thing that I said that at least we don't have to delve into the topic, but if we would just wanted to sort of like dip the toes in and maybe tease it a little bit, what we talked about, what got me rolling on it was after we'd stopped recording the last time you were here, we were upstairs and we were still talking a little bit about the whole Jordan Daniel Wood undoing of the past traumas,
Hmm.
whatever. And you had mentioned something about like the way that you framed, I don't remember the way you framed it, but the way I conceived what you were saying is like, because we all sort of live our own realities, is it possible to alter the reality for you? Like, if we lived through the same traumatic experience but had different perspectives of it, to undo that would have to be different altering realities for your reality and my reality because we live different. You know what I mean? And so, like, that just got me thinking on the whole idea of like just reality in general. The fact that we do sort of live our own realities and like what is reality? Is there one universal reality? Or and I guess where my mind really went with that is like the old adage of like there's a different version of you that exists in every person that you've ever met, right? But nobody, because I know you. The example I gave to you earlier today was like I know you, Candace knows you, your mom, your brother, and your boss at work all know you, but we all know you different. We have a different Sean Case in our head. And it's all based upon our perception of you and our experiences with you but do any of us truly know the true Sean Case? Do you even know the true Sean Case? You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
like what is the reality of who is Sean Case? Or is there even one? Or is it just is there a million Sean Cases that exists in the minds of every person? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and just thinking through the implications of that, a little bit kind of got me thinking. In particular, just because of like I knew some of the language that I've used before about like atonement and like I'd asked you the question of like what's the point of the Jesus story, like what is it that we get from Jesus, and it just goes along with some of the stuff that I had said previously about perennialism, which is more or less like that there's truth to be found and there's a that it, I don't want to speak for like the official definition of perennialism because I'm not like educated enough to speak to that on that topic, but the whole idea is sort of that most religious systems are just well really all religious systems are man-made constructs, but at the root of them is an underlying truth, and that's why you see like the truth transcends time and culture. You see the same sort of message of oneness with God and the love of God transcends from Christianity and Judaism and Hindu and Buddhism and like all the different streams of thought, right? Which kind of makes sense if there isn't one unified reality. Well, even that language isn't good because I still think that there is a one unified reality, but the understanding that none of us perceive reality as it is, that we're all living and perceiving reality from our own perspectives, then there cannot be, in my mind, one universal message or path or way that speaks to everybody to where we all see the same vision. We all see the truth for what it is. You know what I mean? Like, just thinking sort of through that.
Yeah.
Just light stuff.
Right. So I had there's kind of several things I could say there, but the number one thing that I wanted to say was that whenever I said that in that conversation, I was just kind of spitballing ideas. I don't even know if I,
I know.
you know,
That's actually
but
happened to me several times. I've realized, like, me and you'll just be having random conversations, and like a lot of times, the stuff that you want to get through my thick skull don't get through, and then the things that you just kind of say as like throwaway statements, or the stuff that I'm like, you know what, he's got a really good point in there.
so the other thing that I thought about though was that I do think that what I've sometimes called the deeper reality, the deeper truth, the reality that is more real than whatever our perceptions of it is. That the I think the goal is for us to come to know that reality, the truth of that reality. Like I think that's what heaven and hell are about. Actually, is
Right.
is coming to know the truth and to you know well, that's what the scripture says. Like God desires all to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth, right? To repent, um, change your mind, right? So to have that shift in your mind where you're seeing things for what they really are, and to see your more, uh, maybe not more importantly, but like to see yourself for who you truly are, and to see everyone else for who they really are. You know,
Yeah,
like
absolutely. I agree with that.
yeah.
100%.
So that's what I think the process of judgment is. It's being forced to face up to the reality of things, having to come face to face with the ways in which you have believed lies about yourself and others, and the consequences of that, and but ultimately to be led into the truth of that and to let go of that version of yourself that you have made yourself into. To, let go of that. You need to read Lilith, that George MacDonald book.
I know it. I tried to start listening to it, and I'm not an audiobook guy. I got to read it.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things that like I feel like it's a thing that like you're either gonna love it or hate it, and I really liked it.
But listening to Jordan Daniel Wood talk about it with that other fella, it seemed like something I would dig. But like I said, I tried to. I'm just not an audiobook guy. Like especially because the only time I have to listen to audiobooks is when I'm either running or working. And when I run, my mind wanders too much, and then I miss too much. And then when I work, same thing. Like I'll get focused on what I'm doing at work, and then I missed two chapters. And it's
Mm.
just, I can't.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff. There's a lot of stuff that was super good in that book. A lot of stuff that really resonated with me.
Right.
Uh,
Well, I mean, I definitely, so far, everything that you've said, I'm 100% like, yes, I would agree with that. Like, I do think that there is one underlying universal, as I've called it in this podcast, a ground of reality, which I would call God, right? And like, I think that there is an uncovering of that process of coming to that knowledge of what that reality is and who you truly are, right? And like, but I think that the point for me with it is that what it says to me is that that's the reason why there's a lot of different languages. That's the reason why there's a lot of different, and not just, and when I say language, I don't mean literally like Chinese and English and Spanish. I mean the different ways that people have of speaking this truth or projecting this truth or getting this truth across. It's because we all live in our own understanding of reality. And so, like, we want to talk about, especially when it comes to faith and religion, like, everybody needs to believe the way that I believe. But I don't think that that works. I don't think that makes any sense because we all perceive things from a different set of eyes. You know what I'm saying? And so like the reason why I've thought about some of this stuff is actually from a constructive way, not a destructive way. It's because in the past I've wanted to make people see things the way that I see things. Even if they didn't agree with me, I just want people to see what I see, just at least acknowledge. And I've come to realize that in a lot of ways, even though that I think the way that I see things makes sense to me and is true, to make somebody else see that can be more destructive than constructive, right? Because I think that there are different ways of getting to the truth of the reality and the truth of who you are. Like the easy example that I gave to you, some of the stuff that we've talked about with the humanity and divinity of Christ, right? It's like there's been some things that I've said to you, and you outright said it. I don't know if like you would still use that strong of a language, but you straight up said like I have to hold on to this, or like I don't know if I believe anything if that fall. You know what I mean? Like this has to be true. And like there's a lot of things too that like I think that you believe about that like when I try to get my mind around it and try to force that vision on myself, it moves me closer to atheism. It's like, well, I don't think that I if that's true, I don't think if that has to be true, I don't think I believe anything. Like that's, you know what I mean? And so from that perspective, is it good for me to try to change your mind to align it with my vision, or you to change my mind to align it with your vision, if it's going to sway we as we exist currently, even though our visions are different, we get to basically the same spot, we have the same finish line. You know what I mean?
Right. As far as like, yeah, like trying to make you see it my way, I don't think that that works. I don't think
Right.
that I don't know if that's something we should be pursuing necessarily. Um,
I mean, and even just to like where some of this thought was cultivating was in like in writing the essay I'm working on, and writing like on the Trinity. Like I don't, to me, currently at least, we've done a whole episode on this, and I've softened up on it a little bit, but it still doesn't make much sense to me. I don't think it's literally true, but I understand the theology behind it. I understand that it's part of this system, this, I don't want to offend too many people, but I've already said that I think all religions are man-made religions. That includes Christianity. Like I think it is a part of this system, this man-made system that helps us conceptualize the love of God and our oneness with God. I think some people need that. They need to believe that in order to understand their oneness with God. That's the only way they can believe that. Well, then I don't have, even though I don't believe it to be literally true, the fact that I understand the theology behind it and see how this works and see that some people need to believe this in order to believe their oneness with God, well, then by all means believe it. Why would I try to destroy that? Even if I don't think it's literally true. You know what I mean?
right.
So,
Yeah, I'm in agreement with all of that. The only thing I would probably add to that is just that, like, I think that there is a reality that is true, and I think everybody's gonna come to know that reality
yes.
at some point.
And I think what I would currently define that reality is oneness with God. Maybe that would change, but currently, if I had to describe that, that's what I would say it.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna. The only thing, this is just like a common thing for me and you, I guess, as of well, for the last maybe 6 months. I don't know how long, but anything that you're gonna say, I'm just gonna add Jesus to it.
Right.
Like the scripture in I think it's in Corinth, no, in Colossians, where it says that your life is hidden in Christ. So like if you're going to experience true life, like if you're going to, if we were talking about discovering who you truly are. Like if that's true, that your life is hidden in Christ, then I don't think anyone's going to find their life apart from Christ. And that sounds too, for some folks, that's going to sound right. For some folks, it's going to sound too narrow. For some people, it's going to sound too inclusive
Yeah.
to some. And it's going to sound too exclusive to others. And yeah, that just is what it is.
Right. And to
But
me, it's all of those. It's all of those. Everything that you just said, it's all of them.
it's too inclusive and too exclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I agree with it, but like I think in a more literal sense, I see Jesus as the way to that ultimate reality. But I guess even in saying that, I would say a way to that ultimate reality.
Right.
So, which actually has kind of transformed my view as I've been thinking through this on like salvation by belief. Because like I think if you're somebody who cannot envision your oneness with God without having Jesus as that way, then you have to believe in it. You have to. In a way, your belief is tied to that. Like,
So, like, if I'm not mistaken, the only times that the scriptures talk about belief in terms of salvation is mostly it's when Jesus is talking about believing in him.
right.
And, Paul talks about believing, but even then he's talking about believing in Jesus, right?
Yeah.
If you believe in your heart, confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, or vice versa. I think I mix those up every time. But
Yeah, I mean that's yeah.
so, so I don't think it's just a generic belief. At least I don't, because,
No, I don't think so
but
either.
yeah,
I think if you think that's what I'm saying, then you're just not understanding what I'm saying.
I guess maybe I'm not understanding
Yeah.
what you're saying then.
I don't think it's a generic belief, but I mean, I guess what and this is what I was saying to you earlier about, like, I don't even know that I have the language to, like, the language to get across to you what it is I believe, because that's why I said that every descriptor for what you said a while ago I agree with, like, even though that they're contradictory things, because like if you are a Christian, like, and if you feel like if there is, let me see. It really does go back to the whole idea of a universal one way, one truth. Like, I don't think that I don't think that exists. I still think that what we're trying to do is impose our way on other people. Even if there's slight tweaks in the theology of it that we can accept, we're still saying, no, this is the way. You have to believe this. And it's like, nah, I think if you're someone who needs to believe that, then yes, you need to believe that.
If there's not one way and there's not one truth, then how is there not more than one reality then?
Well, I think that the underlying there's all the ways lead to the one truth. I do think that there is one truth,
Okay.
which is God, or like I said, call it logo, union with God. Our like that's what I think, and that's the way that I've described that. Like the way that I've conceived of atonement, right, is that there is no separation between man and God, and this is all sort of based upon my understanding of Baxter Kruger's, like Jesus and the undoing of Adam, right? Like the fall of man is really the delusion of separation. It's God has never been separated from us, but we believe, as men, we believe that there was a separation from God between man. And I think even in just the way that I described that there, you can already see where, like, the things that I'm saying have caused a tension with that, is because even in saying man believed that there is a separation between God and man just imposes that every single human that's ever lived believed that. Now, if you're someone who believes that, then you need a bridge to cross that chasm. But not everybody believes that, and not everybody has. I mean, there's like I told you this morning that, like, Vedanta has been teaching oneness with God before Jesus was even born. Like, if that's what it's all about, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm trying to say. As far as, I don't know that trying to apply one universal path for all people sort of neglects the idea that we're all experiencing life through different paradigms, and we experience different realities based upon our life. We can't just over superimpose one message and say this applies to every single person.
Hmm.
I don't think. I don't think that's
Yeah.
reality. I understand the desire to say that, but I
Yeah.
just don't think that that lines up with the nature of reality as we see it.
Actually don't know that. So I might disagree, but maybe I don't. If I don't, then I s- it's simply because I don't know that it's not that I don't know how to say what I'm wanting to say.
Trust me, I understand. The language thing gets difficult.
So like I agree that like not everyone is going to like I couldn't convince everyone that I spoke to believe exactly what I believe even if I wanted to.
Right.
That's just not something that we can do, and I don't know that we should be trying to. So from that perspective, from that point of view, agree in that sense with what you're saying. Like I don't think it's my like I'm not gonna go out and try to convince Hindus or Buddhists to like or Muslims or whoever to like
Right.
that like I've got it all figured out. Like I'm not gonna do that. but I still believe that the truth, that there is a way and a truth, and that everyone's going to find that way, that truth, and that life, and in fact, the only way to life is that way. So I still think that there is one way, one truth, one life, one reality. Um, but I don't think that we're necessarily negating anyone's current perspective, or like I don't feel a need to like try to negate someone else's views here and now, like right now. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
So
I mean, I think I do know what you're saying. I just don't know. I don't know if I believe you.
you don't know if you believe me. You don't know if you believe me, or you don't know if you believe what I.
No, I just don't know that I believe. Like, I think it. I think I definitely do. Like, I know you're not just lying to me, obviously. like,
Not
but
intentionally.
I also do think that there is just because maybe it's just because of some of the language that you've used in the past. Like, I think that you truly do believe. Well, it's not my place to convince you that Jesus is God, but you're gonna figure that out on your own one day. It's like this kind of like subtle, like
Wink, wink.
sort of this subtle, like I'm not gonna convince you that my way's the right way, but it is, and you're gonna find that out one day. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I'm a Christian now. I am what I am.
right.
You know, I'm not gonna.
And that's what I'm talking about is like, I think that what Jesus is that, is that way, not that ultimate reality. He's the path, not the end point. You know what I mean? Like, to me, the end point is the ultimate reality, which is God, which all these different paths lead to. That's why some people appear what we would call more Christ-like who've never served Jesus, because they get to that place of oneness with God and have never done so through Christianity.
Because Christ is in them.
Okay.
Yeah, but like, so I understand that
Yeah.
perspective. I, I don't think I can believe it
Right.
and believe what I believe the scriptures say.
And see, even that is kind of a ironic thing, because like I don't think I can believe it any other way at this point in my life. Like that's kind of where my experiences and my studies and my all my stuff has kind of led me to the point that I don't know that I can see it any other way at this point. Like, and maybe that'll change one day. Maybe I'll get saved, but like I don't know that I can see that any other way.
Because like if all things are from him, for him and to him, if Jesus is the creator of all things, if he is both the creature and creator, if he is all these things that scripture is claiming him to be, if he is the one who your life is hidden in Christ, if he is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, then he is the end. He is the destination.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of if statements in there.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But they're all if statements that I personally believe, which is my point. Is like I I'm not gonna I have to say what I believe,
Right.
and
And I think
that
that,
is what I believe.
and the whole, to bring this thing full circle, I think you need to believe that. Like, I don't want you to believe any differently. That's the
Right.
point. Like, I think you need to believe that. I don't want to convince you of anything else. Like, the whole reason that we're having this conversation is just to explain it, but not to convince you. Like, not that
Right.
I think I could convince you, but I don't want to. I think you need to believe what you believe. You're in a fantastic place. We get to the same spot. I don't want you to believe what I believe. I want you to believe what you believe and believe it wholeheartedly.
Right.
You know, like, I think that's what you need to believe.
Yeah.
So do it. So believe it.
And maybe that is true for everybody here and now, even if they even if I happen to be right in the end.
Yeah, maybe.
And that is an if. I mean, I'm not saying like I'm definitely not saying that I have perfect theology, but well, kind of like what you were saying earlier about this guy saying he can't quit Jesus. Like everything is dependent on Jesus for me and what's what I believe the scriptures say about Jesus.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, Jesus is my. I mean, I call myself a Christian too, even though, like most people, after hearing this conversation, and well, if they're still, if if this conversation catches them off guard, it has to be the first episode they've ever watched. But most people would hear that with the things I say and say, oh, he's not a real Christian, whatever. Like, you can think what I don't give a damn what you think I am. Like, I call myself a Christian, and like because because Jesus does resonate with me. That's the path. Part I don't know. I choose. Kind of try to choose my words carefully because I say that's the path I chose, but I don't know that I believe that so much as that's the path that chose me. Just simply because it's where I was born and raised, like the place I was, the time in the world I was born, the place I was born, the family I was born into, like all these situations that I had no control over. This is the path that I'm on. This is the path that resonates with me. It's the path that I've chosen or chose me, either way. You know what I mean? So like for me, I am a Christian. That's the path that works for me. That's the path that has led me to a place of understanding that God is love and that I am one with God. Like it's the path that's worked for me. But I guess I'm just trying to be a little bit more um I don't know what's the word. Like I'm more humble than you. I'm trying to be a little humble. I'm the most humble. But I am just trying to respect the understanding of like people are getting I think that people get to that same reality. The whole point of what I think the message that Jesus communicates to me, I think people of every religion get there in their own way. They don't need my language and my way of phrasing it to get there.
Maybe not every religion.
Well, and that's I would agree with that too. Some religions are just bullshit, but whatever.
Yeah. Some of the
Looking at you, Scientology.
but yeah, like some of the more enduring ones, the older ones, like the more
Right.
uh, popular, relevant ones. Like, yeah, there's some
And that's
overlap for sure.
And that's why I asked you when I asked you that question of like, what is the Jesus story saying to us? Like, what is the message? Like, if somebody they've never heard of Jesus before and they read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, what is it that these stories are communicating to these people that they should, after they finish the end of John, what is it that they should get from the story? And for me, my answer to that is what I would think that most people should get from that is that God is love and that there is no separation between you and God. And maybe that's an oversimplification, but to me, that's the message. That's the theme of the story. And I think that same theme runs through various different ways. You can arrive at that truth in so many different ways. But the way for me is Jesus. The way for you is Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that the Gospels are saying more than that, but they're not saying that.
Right.
But I do think they are saying more than that. But yeah.
Fair enough. And that's why I like to your point about not every religion being true. Yes, and that's why I try to like tend to like what I look for is like where are the common threads? What can I see in these ancient religions that that transcends time and culture? Because if there is an ultimate truth, an ultimate reality, it's not going to be confined to one time period or one culture. It's going to have existed from the beginning of man to the end of man. Like you're going to be able to find that truth in every culture. So where are the overlaps? And it doesn't ignore the real differences because there are real differences in every religion because I think every religion is man-made. It's just man's best attempt at understanding God and man's best attempt. You know what I mean? So like I think it's all religions are man-made to an extent. But it's where you see those overlaps is where I think that the truth endures, you know? So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in all the religions that I think are bull. And I said all. Like
Right.
that includes Christianity.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not saying that to try to convince you of that. We're just having it. That's the nature of what we do here.
Right.
We have conversations. I believe you need to believe whatever you believe, as long as it gets you to a healthy place, which I think you are. So it gets my approval.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, and some of this does go back to like it's not just me and you, but some of the other stuff I've listened to from like other people. It's like, man, we get to the exact same finish line, but god dang, we get there different ways. Even though, even within Christianity,
Right.
you know. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. Think I've said my piece on that.
me too.
Hmm. I was trying to think if there was anything else worth saying. This episode's kind of been all over the place.
It has been all over the place. I think it's good. I've had a good conversation with it. I mean, I don't know if it's as good to the listeners as it has been for me, but it's been a good conversation. We've touched on a ton of different topics.
Yeah. Basically, guys just love each other, huh?
That's what it comes down to. Everybody love everybody, in the words of Jackie Moon. Everybody love everybody.
Exactly. Oh, I'm actually really tired.
Yeah, I see that. I'm hungry, man. I tried to fast today. Well, not really fast. I kind of cheated fast, but my goal was to not eat any solid food until lunchtime, and I did succeed at that. I had a protein shake like halfway through the morning at like 9:30 this morning, but like I think I'm gonna try to implement that because what I've realized is that I eat a lot all the time. So if I'm gonna eat a lot all the time, I should just eat fewer times.
Right.
We'll see if it checks out and if it works, but that's the plan. It's the thinking. Because like if I understand the idea of like, well, if you eat 6 small meals a day, yeah, you'll stay full throughout the day and you won't eat as much. And that doesn't work for me because I'll eat 5 small meals a day and then eat 2,000 calories for supper.
Right.
So it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So if I just starve myself for half the day and then I eat my 2,000 calories for supper, yeah, I'm still in a calorie deficit.
As long as you don't eat 3 to 4,000 calories for supper because you're so hungry.
And that's why I said we'll see if it works because that's yet to be seen.
Yeah. Well, I this is my first day back from the vacation, back to the normal. So far, I've stuck to my calories today,
Congratulations.
but the night is young.
I mean, it's almost bedtime, 6:40.
Yeah, it is almost bedtime.
But
Well, you feel good about this one?
I feel good about it. I had a really good conversation. I hope everybody else enjoyed the conversation. You know what would help is if they would let us know whether they enjoyed the conversation or hated the conversation. So,
Yeah. Are we scumbags?
I mean, if you hate everything I say and hate my face, you can tell me, and that's okay. I can take it.
I'm too sensitive. Don't tell me.
Don't tell it to Sean, but you can say it to me. Which is fine. I mean, I don't. I've come to a place in my walk where I don't expect much of anybody to like what I say or agree with what I say, but I also don't care. I'm on my own path, man. Like, it is what it is.
I'm on the spiritual path.
I'm spiritual, not religious.
It sounds like something that some drunk gal would say.
I'm not drunk and I'm not a gal, but
I'm on a spiritual path. Aren't we all, though,
I guess, yeah.
to a certain extent?
I've heard it said that matter is just spirit slowed down to visibility. So, in that sense, even just existing is a spiritual matter.
Hmm. By the way, um, there is a video that I have yet to watch, but I will. I'm probably going to send it to you. It's David Bentley Hart. It's a little short video where he's talking about perennialism
Yep.
versus syncretism.
Yep.
You seen it?
Nope.
Oh.
I've seen it out there. Like I know it exists. I think I actually have saved it to a playlist to like watch at a later time and just haven't got around to it. But
Hmm.
maybe it's not the same one. But I know that there are videos because I do have some videos on my playlist saved of him talking about perennialism.
Yeah. He didn't um so I have watched it before, but I don't remember much about it. Well, from what I remember, I don't think he was a big fan of perennialism.
Yeah, I have watched him talk about it a little bit, and he's not a fan of it.
Yeah. But I don't know exactly what syncretism is.
But also, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's a fan of
I just thought you might be
it.
interested to hear what he has to say about it.
No, I will watch it. It's not that I don't care. Like I guess what I mean in saying I don't care is like just because somebody doesn't like it doesn't mean I'm gonna just be like, oh well, David Bentley Hart doesn't like it. But like I will consider what I mean. He's a smart fella.
Yeah. He's smarter than me.
Yeah, smart. He is smarter than you.
On that note.